landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Madeline Lanagh brings a deeply personal and artistic voice to the world of landscape photography. Starting her photographic journey later in life after a career and retirement in the Netherlands, she speaks candidly about the creative awakening that followed the publication of her autobiography in 2015, a moment that led her to fully embrace expressive photography. In this episode, Madeleine explores the emotional depth behind her images and how her work has shifted from sweeping vistas to more intimate and abstract representations of the natural world. She discusses her evolving style, shaped by introspection and a desire to photograph beyond what the eye sees. Her book on the Seacoast's moods, experimental processes like cyanotypes and caustics, and her role as an ambassador for Nature First, underscore her commitment to both personal authenticity and environmental responsibility. With a background steeped in writing, a lifetime of observation, and a strong artistic lineage, Madeleine offers a perspective that's rich in both wisdom and curiosity. This conversation is a heartfelt exploration of the intersection between creativity, self-expression, and a reverent relationship with nature. I hope you enjoy the show.
G'day, Madeline. How are you going?
Oh, very well, thank you. The sun's shining here, and it's going to be another beautiful day.
Beautiful. We had a bright sunny day too. It's now a little dark. Now it's come into the evening here. But yeah, welcome to Landscape Photography World. Let's talk about landscape photography and your photography in particular. I'd like to start with, what does photography mean to you?
Oh, now that's a big one. What photography means to me is one way of expressing myself, my feelings about things, the way I experience things, the way I connect to nature and landscape. But it's primarily about the ability to be creative and to live creatively.
Awesome. That's nice. And what got you started with landscapes? What was it? What was the first landscape you saw that said, okay, I really want to dedicate some good chunk of my life to this?
May I start by challenging the statement by saying that I do not consider myself a landscape photographer.
Sure.
But I did get started. So I've been photographing most of my life, but when I really dived into it seriously after I retired in 2016, I was very aware that I am inspired by nature.
Sure.
That's where I feel at home. That's where I get my energy. That's where I find the beauty that I'm looking for. And nature, as I developed into more and more abstraction, nature became more and more about landscape and not, for instance, wildlife or birds or anything like that, but just my entire surroundings.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess, as I was saying, what was the first landscape that you were in, though, that you said, okay, what I want to do?
Okay. What was the first landscape I was in that really triggered the artist in me? And I suppose I would say two. I used to live very near the tidal wetlands that we call the Biesbos here. And they're this collection of little shallow creeks and secret places and trees standing in the middle of water. And it really triggered my imagination.
What?
So it wasn't one photo. It was just the desire to go into that deeper. And I suppose the first time I went to Iceland, when I say that, I think, no, because I went to New Zealand before I went to Iceland.
Okay.
And I went to Alaska before I went to New Zealand. So I'm afraid I can't really tell you.
That's fine. That's fine. Go on.
There are some stunning places on Earth that spoke to the artist in me.
Yeah. Speaking about being spoken to, I'm interested in what are the greatest influences and what are the things that really do inspire you? Is it the grand landscape? Is it the intimate scene? Is it the abstract? And I know that's probably changed over your career.
Oh, definitely. Because, of course, I was going for the grand landscape and trying to show, when I first started, I just wanted to show people how beautiful everything was.
Sure.
And I gradually discovered two drawbacks to that. And one was that it meant I was taking pretty much the same images everybody else was taking.
Yep.
And it wasn't just showing them how beautiful it is, wasn't enough for me. I wanted to share the things that it really called up in me, my emotional responses to what I saw, which was just not happening in the grand landscape. And this was too much about what I was seeing
Yeah.
and not about what lies beyond it. And so I did, and I kept getting more and more intimate and looking more for the feeling, but also for the composition in small things. And gradually I started getting rid of the context. So my images became more and more abstract.
Okay. I'm interested in that process of that change in people's perspective, both the actual perspective of saying, okay, we're going to look at the broader landscape and now we're going to focus on these little details somewhere. But I'm also talking about that mental perspective about the expression and the desire to actually put forward a feeling out of an image as opposed to just saying, okay, here's a pretty picture.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with how I was very concerned in the beginning to show people or to be acknowledged as a good photographer. Am I good enough? Am I acceptable?
Yeah. I think everybody has that, particularly at the beginning.
Yeah. And there was really a long process to start getting rid of that and getting closer to, no, what I really need to do is just say what I want to say and not worry about what other people think of it.
Yeah.
And just be authentically myself and show my response to the landscape. And interestingly enough, my work became more interesting to other people as I went through that process.
Yeah.
Which, in retrospect, it's logical. But I think a lot of people who start out don't realize that.
No, I think you're very right there.
Yeah.
What is that feeling that you're trying to get people to take away? And I know that might change with different images. Some may be moody, some might be a joyful image of first buds of a leaf or something. What are the messages or the takeaways that you want your audience to actually take away from your image?
It could be awe. It could even be despair. It could be, but I think my book is a good example because when I started with the book, which was back in 21, I guess, with the collecting images, the theme that emerged for me was the changing moods of the Seacoast and how the changing moods of the Seacoast reflected my own moods. So sometimes the sea was angry, sometimes the sea was joyful, sometimes the sea was very subdued. Sometimes it had held the promise of dawn. And there were so many. Every time I went out there, it was different. It wasn't about, basically, the Dutch seacoast is a pretty boring place. It's flat sand with dunes behind and water ahead and sky. But the combination of tides, wind, sky, waves, just everything was never the same.
Yeah.
I always expressed something else. And it reflected my own changeable moods. And that's what I loved about it.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the book. How did that project start? What was the germ that said, okay, I'm going to create a book?
Okay. So I've always loved working in projects.
Sure.
And I learned at a certain point that by going back to the same location or to the same theme or to the same subject again and again, that you go deeper and you get further beyond what the actual thing is saying to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I moved up here in 21, I was back. This is very close to where I started out in the Netherlands. And I was really happy that I was like only 5 minutes from the coast,
Yeah.
20 minutes at the most. And so I started going down to the beach and taking photos. And then I did more. And at the time, I was mentoring with Theo Bosma, who we will probably get back to later. And he said, yeah, this is a good project. Stay with it. Might even turn into a book. And I said, nah, I'm not going to make a book. And then, like, maybe 2 years in, I realized, and that was about the time they said, you almost have enough images to make a book.
Yeah.
And I realized that it would be wonderful to, not only because I always love having something tangible. I love printing photos.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them just on the screen. And I realized that it would be wonderful to be able to share something, and not just for a few examples for friends and family, but really go all out and share something big would be what I want to say to the world about my art. And so it turned into, I think in the beginning of 2024, I said, okay, I'll do it if you coach me through the weird bits. And he said, sure. And went to meet a printer, talk to a printer, had good ideas about what I was doing and how that might work in a book. And ended up with something like 400 images that then Theo helped me do the sequencing, the selection and the sequencing. And I would urge everyone to not do that alone, but always have a second pair of eyes to work on that.
Okay.
And then the beginning of October, suddenly it was there.
Awesome.
And yeah. I think it's pretty awesome too. Yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from in terms of that tangibility of photography. For me, an image isn't really finished until I've at least done a test print. It might only just be one of 4 on an A4 sheet or something, just as a quick view to say, okay, what does this actually look like? But I do books, but largely as a replacement for photo albums. And so I print a book each year and put either a bunch of art stuff, but I'll also put in the family snapshots and that sort of thing, so that it is a bit more like the actual old school photo album, more than anything else. Very few words. I'm interested in how you came up with the words to go along with the images, because most photographers are quite visual in their communication and their communication style, but I know I struggle with words and putting words around an image. I struggle with naming an image even. I've taken to giving each image, even if I just post it on social media, a name now, just to get into that practice and to help me think about what it is that I'm trying to say with the image as well. And I'm interested in your process of actually going through and finding the words for your images.
That's very interesting, your practice of always giving images titles just for the practice. Because I've always been very difficult about giving images titles unless they immediately popped into my head. Because I don't want a title that just says what the image is, because you can already see that. But and when putting together the book and wondering, am I going to use any text at all? And if I am, what is it going to be? And I do have the advantage that I also do a lot of writing, and I enjoy writing. And so I wanted something that was at least lyrical, poetic, and not just saying, this was taken there and there. That has nothing to do with what I want to say. It has nothing to do with it. So I went looking for I used blocks of text sometimes just to create space between images, to create
Right.
breathing space,
Yeah.
sometimes to mark a shift in mood. And with the words, I tried to describe some kind of sensation that the viewer would not be able to see,
Sure.
like how it felt, how it sounded, how it smelled, looking at the other senses and involving those instead of just adding to the visual. There's a minimum of text in there, but there's just enough. And of course, there is text, but there's a foreword by Valda Bailey. There's a closing words by Teo, and I did write a short piece of text at the end about why I made the book.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, it was. So it's combining. I know someone who always combines their photos with a haiku, and it was that idea.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I know a few photographers that either haiku or some other form of poetry.
Yeah.
There's a few people that actually if they're posting on social media, they'll post a poem with every image. And I think that's, again, it's a really interesting practice to get into, to try and not only name your image, but also to give it some emotional attachment to a set of words. Not that I'm saying that the words they may not even, particularly in poetry, they may not even refer directly to the image, but they bring forward that nuance of the feeling of the image as part of the experience. And I think it's a wonderful thing if you can have the talent to do that. I'm not much chop at poetry, to be honest. I'm a far better photographer than I'm a poet. And I don't think I'm that great as a photographer. I'm okay, but...
So what do you do besides titling your images?
Normally I title them and give them a little bit of a blurb. Sometimes it's about the experience, sometimes about a feeling, but it's mostly titling, and that titling, as you said, has to come organically. So for me, it is about saying, okay, what is this image? And I know in Instagram now you can actually attach music to your images. So I normally come up with the title first, then go and search for a song with that title or similar.
Okay. Yeah.
And then have a listen to it. Unless it's not appropriate, I don't do it. But when I'm posting on Instagram, I'll put a song that goes with that image.
Yeah.
Again, to try and enhance the viewer's experience of the feeling of the expression of the image, as opposed to just putting a set of words or whatever with it. So, yeah, as I say, for me, the practice has been around expressing the feelings attached to that image that I may have. And that might be an image from years ago that I've dug out of the archives and decided to finally edit after 2 or 3 years. Or it might be one that I took yesterday, depending on...
Oh, I love going back to older images, and I do it more often these days. But when I was doing all the promotion for the book before it came out, and I must admit I don't do it as often anymore, but I would put together little reels for Instagram and Facebook, and then I would look for a song that went with the reel that would go with the entire thing, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah. I
think if you can express yourself in different ways, aside from just here's my image of today or tomorrow or whatever, doing that in conjunction with your images, I personally think enhances the viewer's experience. Occasionally I get comments, why did you pick that song? Because they may have a different connotation for that piece of music that they don't associate with the image. But
that's true with titles too.
Exactly. And also if you've got a book, people will look at the image and go, yeah, I don't really feel what you're saying there.
Exactly. I had a discussion with a friend who'd seen a modern art, a painting in a gallery, and was really drawn to the painting, really loved it. And it was something abstract, but the title was Axiom. And he could not for the life of him figure out what the title had to do with the painting.
Yeah.
And I was saying, so people have different associations with different things.
Absolutely.
And that there must have been, somehow that must have clicked in the mind of the painter, but it doesn't necessarily click in the mind of the viewer.
But as you said,
So,
it's something that is for you, not for other people necessarily.
yeah. It's a whole discussion about equivalence, which Stieglitz meant to say that the cloud photos he made were equivalents of emotions that he felt.
Sure.
But as I guess it was Minor Whiten pointed out, but they aren't necessarily the emotions that the viewer is going to see. The viewer might see entirely different things.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the beauties, though, of photography and art in general, particularly abstract art, because you are leaving the interpretation up to the viewer. You might give them visual or auditory or other text clues to the way that you see the image, but they're always going to take away what they take away. It's not necessary. Some of my abstract images, I know people have said, I can see this in it that I for the life of me, couldn't see.
Yeah, the word escapes me, but there are people who see faces and stuff like that in everything.
Yeah.
And I tend not to. When somebody points out something, I say, "Oh yeah, I see a face in there. Yeah, you're right."
Yeah,
No,
like a cloud that looks like an elephant or a rabbit or something like that, and you go, yeah. But yeah,
it does.
it is as fleeting as that, because 5 minutes later it's completely different.
Exactly. Like the sea,
Absolutely.
and like many landscapes, as soon as the light changes, the landscape is different.
Absolutely. I'm interested in the process that people have for setting creative challenges for themselves. So what I'm talking about there is, do you have a process in the first place? If so, what does that process look? And how do you say, okay, I'm maybe because you're lacking a bit of inspiration for a period of time, and you go, okay, I really need to go out and do some photography. What challenge am I going to set myself? Because I've been doing it a long time and I know what I'm doing. I can go to the same place again, but if I go to the same place, I've got to do something different. I've got to come up with something unique. How do you set that challenge for yourself?
I've got 3 different things popped up as you were talking. So I'll do one at a time. Might not necessarily be the right order. The thing is that whenever I see a rabbit hole, I go down it.
Okay.
And so when I learned about making cyanotypes, and that's also a sort of photography, I immediately decided, okay, I'm going to master cyanotyping. When I heard about photocaustics, which is adding encaustic wax and pigment to prints, basically adding something to the prints that weren't there in the first place. That was a huge rabbit hole, because you need all kinds of equipment to do it. But it's fascinating, and it's so tactile. And I've also been trying to figure out, I'm working on a photography project at the moment that feels as though I should be doing something with transparent layers that you could walk through. In sort of an installation.
Okay.
And I thought, that would be fun. In the first place, why would I do it? Or not why would I do it, but once I have it, what would I do with it? And because I'm still looking for a gallery who would be interested in representing this kind of work.
Yeah.
And haven't found it yet, but we'll get there.
That's
the whole rabbit hole bit. When I have reached a bit of a creative lull, or some people say a block, but I know enough about this not to let it worry me. Sometimes and I think most people, just need to step back.
Yeah.
Step back, take a rest, don't worry about it. Go do something else, get involved in something else, go out for walks without your camera. Just let yourself. Sometimes it all needs to go into a period like tides. Tides come in and go out, and sometimes you need a moment of low tide.
Yep.
And to rest, to recover, and the inspiration will come all by itself again.
Yeah.
And for instance, after I'd finished the book, I had no desire to go back out to the beach. And it was just the sense that, okay, just not now. Sorry. I've done that. I might get back to it, but not now. And I allowed myself just to not go out at all until I was inspired, not to out with my camera until I was inspired to do it again. And at a certain point, then suddenly I saw what my next project was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how that goes. I even offer a one-on-one workshop for people who are experiencing what they feel is a creative block, and they feel stuck and they don't know how to get unstuck.
I
I
feel that struggle sometimes. I've not been out as often as I normally do, probably for the last 4 or 5 months. Probably only been out twice in that 4 or 5 months, which is pretty rare for me.
Yeah.
It's not quite a daily occurrence, but every second or third, I'm usually out taking things.
Yeah.
But
And that must feel confronting.
not really. I'm actually quite relaxed about it. There's been a lot of other things going on in my life, a new grandson and a few other things that I'm not going to talk about here. But those things have taken priority, and so my mind's elsewhere, and I'm not feeling the urge. I'm still feeling creative. I'm still editing. I'm still looking at old photos. I'm still doing the podcast and all those sorts of things, but I'm not concentrating very much on creating new work right now. And I'm okay with that, because as far as I'm concerned, at some point I will go somewhere that makes me go, oh, I've got to get my camera out and do something here.
Exactly. It happens. It's in there somewhere. It's just slumbering for a while.
Absolutely. It's also the middle of winter, which is good for if you want to get up for sunrise, because you don't have to get up quite as early, but it's cold. It's up in the morning at the best of times. But
I prefer the cold to the heat, and we're getting the last couple of summers have been unusually hot.
yeah,
So temperatures have gotten back up into the 30s, and that's not my favorite time of year.
yeah, it's not my favourite time of year either, but sometime just a little bit warmer than it is now. It was below zero here last night, and I think -1 too, and that's just, it's not conducive to getting up early and going out and
Oh no, that would be.
not for me.
Yeah. You have to dress for it, but you can dress for it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't dress for heat, but you can dress for cold.
Oh, I can. Pair of swimming trunks and a t-shirt and no shoes. And I'm down the beach, and if it's 6 o'clock in the morning and the water temperature is 23 degrees, then I'm happy.
Okay, yeah. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. You haven't got the burning sun on top.
Yeah. I'm normally home by 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I'm interested in how people also, beyond the projects, how they actually connect with places before they go out and shoot them. Some people do a lot of research. Some people rely more on instinct. Some people rely on experience because it's somewhere they've been many times. I'm interested in your experience in that. Are you a planner? Are you somebody that is more instinctual with your photography? Do you do pre-visualization? What sort of techniques are you using before you go into the field to set yourself up for success?
I'm not a planner. And any pre-visualization I do, I'm in the field and I'm thinking about how it should look when I want to print it.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't think beforehand I'm going out to get that image and that image.
Sure.
I go out. So that's one answer. And I go slowly.
Yeah.
I don't immediately grab my camera and start shooting. I walk, I look, I let things come in and try to get in touch with, basically try to connect with the place before I do anything.
Yeah.
And I think some people talk about slow photography, but that's me too. I don't take a lot of images. When I find something that I want to capture, I will walk around it and take different images and different angles and try out different exposures. But I go really slowly from one thing to the other and feel how I respond to it. And if it's something that I could make an image of.
Yeah,
There are a lot of things that look great. They're just not going to work as an image.
sure.
So that's another answer. And then when I go on trips, the way I prepare myself is, for instance, when I went to Iceland, I went and read all the Viking family sagas
Oh, nice.
because I wanted to get in touch with how Iceland's very much about spirits in landscape, and I believe in that too. And it feels as though it is there. And so I wanted to prepare myself for being sensitive to that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Or so I might read mythology, or I might read something about geology. The northern coast of Spain is just geologically so fascinating that it's good to have a sense of that geology before I went there.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's what I do. I don't research beforehand what might be a good place to take a photo.
Oh.
Now, though I'm often with people who do. No.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who use photographers, ephemeris, and various other apps and things, and they're planning, okay, the sun's going to come up between these two mountains or whatever, and they're sitting down pre-visualizing exactly where they want to put the tripod and everything, almost, and looking at Google Maps and everything. But yeah, I'm really interested in that whole breadth of everyone that does things their own way. And yeah, I can certainly resonate with some of what you're talking about there, particularly that slow to move on, so take your time, look at where you need to be, as you said, explore that subject so that you've covered every angle or whatever it is that you want to try and wring out of it, but definitely don't move on until you're done.
Yes, and look deeply, below the surface, look beyond what you're seeing, and try and take the time to connect to something before that you decide to photograph it. And I think that's very much the slow part, because I know people who would run past the most beautiful things because they were looking for something instead of looking at where they were. Yeah.
That's amazing. Talk to me about cyanotypes. For those that don't know what they are, I'll just give a very brief rundown, but also for those that might skip ahead if you know what a cyanotype is. But I'm interested in how you got into that. What was it that took you down that rabbit hole? So let's dive down the rabbit hole together and think the cyanotypes a bit more.
I'd heard about them for ages, and I knew that if you put an object on light-sensitive paper and you expose that to light, then it will give you the silhouette of that object. Cyanotypes is taking that a little further, because you coat paper to make it with chemicals to make it light sensitive.
Yep.
And then you do something with that coating, either when it's wet or when it's dry, depending on how complicated you want to get, because dry cyanotypes are pretty basic. Then you put something on it and you expose it to light, and you get that silhouette. And then you rinse the chemicals off, and eventually it all turns blue or bluish, cyan. But when you start working with the wet chemicals and you add stuff to that, you could do anything as simple as sprinkling some salt on it.
Okay.
Or some people use turmeric or soap bubbles or coffee grinds or whatever. If you treat it with it, then you do whatever else you want to do with it, and then you expose it to light, then your first result before you rinse it is going to have many different colors.
Yeah.
You can photograph that before you rinse it, and you can photograph it after you rinse it, and you've got two different images. So it's not necessarily about the image that's eventually on paper. Sometimes it's about the image during the process
Okay.
that you photograph just to freeze that moment.
Yep.
Because it's going to disappear.
Yeah, it's going to disappear when you wash the chemicals away.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't wash the chemicals away, then all it does is just get darker and darker. So
Yep.
you have to wash the chemicals away at some point. So that opened up different perspectives.
Mm.
And then what I also like about it is that you can do it on different types of paper.
Yep.
You can do it on handmade paper. You can do it on any kind of semi-transparent, like rice paper, that doesn't dissolve when you get it wet.
Sure.
And each one has its own results and its own effect, which is why which was another rabbit hole, because I started doing handmade books, artist books,
Yeah, nice.
on off. And then you need something to put on the cover of the book. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a photo. That could be, because cyanotypes could be very abstract. So I had these wonderful bits of thin rice paper sort of thing that I could it's put on the cover of a book.
Oh.
So yeah, it's just lots of fun. It's lots of fun. It's a mess, but it's lots of fun.
It reminds me of something that I've done in the past, and I've actually thinking about picking up again because I haven't done it for a little while. I don't know if you've ever experimented with marbling, which is where you set a size in a tray and then you drop different colors, and they could be inks, it could be milk, it could be basically any liquid. You can drop solids in there as well.
Yeah.
Around on the size, and you can get a toothpick or a fork or a spoon or whatever and move things around so the colors can either blend or just put streaks, and a very abstract and very expressionistic way of making art. And I've got an arm from a tripod so that I can get a top-down view of the tray, and just as things change, just take another shot. And
okay.
yeah,
So you
you don't have to. It's just taking the shot first.
Oh, fun.
You can then use paper, and again, as you said, you can use pretty much any paper you like, handmade paper, cardboard, whatever you want. The common use for marbling on paper is the inside of book covers.
Exactly. However, my mother, a person of many creative talents, was also a calligrapher, and she used marbling to decorate her calligraphy pieces.
Nice.
So she would make a background on paper with marbling. And I used to love to watch her do it, because what did she use? Irish moss.
Oh, yep.
She used Irish moss, and then she would float ink on that.
Right.
Then she would make patterns in it, and I think it was ink she floated on it, or maybe it was watercolor paint. I don't know, but I know she also used silver pigment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then she would lift that, and then when the piece was dry, then she would use that for her calligraphy piece. Yeah, yeah. And I haven't tried it myself yet. I know I've been tempted to several times, especially with this handmade book. You think, yes, that would be very nice for an in-leaf.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it means more equipment.
That's a photographer's life, though, isn't it? More equipment.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I've actually pretty much stopped buying photography gear. But as I said, I go down these rabbit holes and I end up buying other stuff. And a lot of it has to be done in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife's very understanding, particularly when I do the marbling shots, because I take over the dining room table entirely, because I have to have room for the tray and the inks and paints and various things that I'm going to drop in, some lighting.
Yeah.
It's got to be lit properly, and also then I've got the tripod on the table, and so the entire dining room table just gets taken up. And if I'm doing that for 4 or 5 hours, she sometimes stretches the patience a little bit, usually.
And then you have to clean up before dinner.
It's definitely always clean up before dinner.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Photo and caustics was even worse, because I have to melt encaustic wax, which is beeswax and rosin, and that means on the stove, on a separate electric heater, otherwise I'm going to ruin the stove, but on top of the stove, so I'm under the exhaust fan. And when that stuff gets on something, it's really difficult to get it.
Yeah, it doesn't come off. I love that use of experimentation. I'm interested, though, in when experiments don't go how you expect. How do you react to that, and what do you learn from that experience?
I have taught myself the mindset that every mistake is just something to learn from. And I know, and of course, my distinctive reaction is, oh,
I
okay.
always,
But yes, I can swear pretty hard. And then think, okay, either I go with the serendipity of it isn't the way I expected it to be,
yep,
or if it's like something like making a book cover and having done the measurements wrong, I just have to put it aside, chalk it up to experience, get out a next piece of board and do it again.
yeah.
Yeah. And just remember not to make that mistake the next time.
Measure
No.
twice, cut once.
Yeah. Yeah. Also think about, because so often it's about thinking that if something might have to be 2 millimeters larger than the last thing you made, you really have to think about the measurements.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm not that precise a person. I'm spontaneous, intuitive, and so I really have to force myself to be precise. Like looking for sensor spots in a photo.
Yeah.
So I had 62 images in that book, and I had to really, before I sent them off for the final, to the printer, the final printing, I had to go back into them and make sure I hadn't missed a single sensor spot. And for me, that is so excruciating. That goes slowly,
It's
nicely.
not the most joyful experience, particularly when
Yeah.
you are doing a print job, particularly when it's going to be a large print, but also if you're doing something that needs to be precise and needs to have precision, likable, and yeah, going through that process. I very rarely look for them, but if I'm just posting, it depends on what I'm doing with the image. If I'm doing something for myself or for a client or whatever, or it's going into a book, then yes, fine tooth comb time, off we go. But I can't say that's my most fun job of photography.
No, and some people are better at it than others. And for the book, I have a friend who sees them all. And she's developed a method to really get them out, to really see them.
Yeah.
Or she hasn't developed, but Tony Carber has a part of one of his plugins. You can
Yep.
really get in and you go pull them all up. And she will go through with a fine tooth comb.
Nice.
And so when I was finished with them, I would send them off to her and she'd take another look, and she always found some that I missed. And that's,
What does success in your photography look like to you?
that's a really good question. That's a really good question. I'm the first person to tell everyone to photograph for yourself. And I do believe that, and I do photograph for myself. And I do believe that that's the only way that you can be authentic that you can make authentic images that are yours, that are original, that express yourself.
Yeah.
But when I was recently awarded a fellowship distinction from the World Photographic Society for my book, I was so proud.
You should be.
I thought, this is really interesting. Madeline, if you don't think that acknowledgement by other people is that important, why did you go for the distinction in the first place? But it was just such a big distinction. And it really meant a lot to me that I did earn it. And often I don't very often win some competitions because my photography is just a little bit too subtle for juries and doesn't really pop out there when you've got thousands to select among.
Yep.
I don't think that says anything about the quality of the photography, but I know that I tickle pink if I do win something.
Yeah, sure. See, it wouldn't, but I think your point though was well made about for certain juries or for certain photography competitions, subtle work doesn't stand out, particularly in landscape. Black and white tends to perform far worse than color images. Even they may be almost as impactful visually as some of the color images in that same thousands of shots that they've got to look through. But for some reason, black and white, particularly in landscape competition, just doesn't seem to pop out. Tends to do better in portrait, but far less so in landscape. And I think you've got to weigh up when entering competitions, what is it that they're actually looking for if you're going into the competition to win it. Some competitions give you feedback if you get to a certain level, which is great, but others, it's just put your image in and hope for the best sometimes.
Yeah. I really like the way National Landscape Photography Awards works, because they do give you feedback. If you've gotten we've gotten into a certain selection round, then you definitely get feedback on what you entered. And I think another point, because I immediately went into this business of being awarded something, success in photography for me, my first husband was a photographer who tried to earn a living doing it.
Sure.
And I was planning to become a photographer at that point in time. Okay. And I decided that's no way to earn a living. No, I will never do that. So success in photography is not anything like you can make a financial success out of it.
Sure.
And I admire people who do, and there's some who I think do it wonderfully without losing any of their integrity. So then they're not out there just making images that are going to sell, or that are going to, or books that are going to sell, and they're not just out there promoting workshops, but they're staying true to themselves. But that's a happy few, I think.
Yeah.
So success, that's not success in photography. I think success in photography is, as I said, I would really love to be recognized as an artist, and being recognized as an artist, so not as a photographer, but as an artist, would mean that at least art galleries are interested in showing my work. I don't even have to sell it. I just want them to show it. But of course, the galleries who look,
I want to sell.
Galleries need to sell. Yes, of course, that's what they're there for. So yeah, but that would feel like success, I think. And but I think the most important thing for me is just that I am feeling happy, I'm feeling creative, and I feel that my work is progressing as I grow and learn and becoming more and more authentic.
Awesome. What do you think you've learned about the world through photography?
Okay, I'm going to throw that one back at you first, because I need some time to think.
What I've learned, I think, is both the world itself is an incredibly awe-inspiring and interesting place. And there are just so many fascinating locations that I'd love to get to, and some that I know that I never will, because my time on Earth is limited, and there will always be somewhere that I haven't been. But I think the thing that I've really learnt about the world through photography is how to look at it in a way that makes me look for subject matter that is interesting. And that might be something that is a grand vista, or it could be the pattern on a leaf on a small bush. That from zoom, not that I'm talking about macro photography, insects and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things can be fascinating too. That's not my photographic desire to get into those sorts of things, but that's the breadth that I look at the world in, and I cannot go anywhere without seeing the place through a photographer's eyes and saying, okay, that would frame up nicely, and if I move to the right a bit or left a bit, I could make something out of that. And as I say, whether it's that grand landscape or the leaf and the pattern on the leaf, I'm looking for those things, and that photography has taught me to observe the world in a different way. And it's attuned me more, I think, to seasonal changes, times of sunrise. I can tell you what time the sun is going to rise tomorrow, for example.
Yeah. My first association with the world was not the landscape or even necessarily nature, because when I think of the world, I think of all the people in it and and society and all the developments of how we influence nature, landscape, and just the whole shebang. So I was searching for what does photography teach me about it. But I do get that about that I'm learning to look at things more closely
Sure.
and take my time to study things. And I've even become a little more tempted to go out there and do something like street or portrait photography or architectural photography, urban photography, just simply because it's there. And I've been so focused on the landscape. And actually, those are other things that I also find fascinating. They also bring me a little closer to, I find joy in landscape, but I don't always find joy in the peopled landscape.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. And actually, this brings me to a different subject, and that is that I'm one of the ambassadors for Nature First.
Yep.
And Nature First is a movement that started up in the U.S. and spread out all through the world about teaching photographers to think about their impact on landscape.
Absolutely.
So for me, the world is also those photographers that go barging in, destroying everything that they want to photograph without either without caring. And if they really don't care, then there's nothing I can do about it, or without being aware of it. And if they aren't aware of it, at least I can make them aware of what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And so there's that people and society aspect to it too. I was happy to find a way to connect to that whole subject because it was upsetting me.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to discover that Nature First was trying to do something about that.
Yeah. I think leave no trace ethos is a great way to live your photography life and make sure that when you're in nature, you're not stepping into things that you shouldn't step, mosslands and peat bogs and things like that. You shouldn't just go tromping through just to get a shot. Delicate landscape require delicacy in the way that you move through them, as well as the way that you actually take images of them. And yeah, for me, it's certainly something that I've strived to do with all of my images. I go to the beach here, and there's city beaches quite often. And I normally take a little bag with me that I can put rubbish, and I'm always finding rubbish. So I put the rubbish in the bag and then go and find the nearest bin and empty the bag into there. But I've always got a bag with me so that I can, if there's something there, if I can improve the place, then I feel like I'm having a positive impact on the world.
Good on you. Good on you. And it goes further. It goes towards, for instance, not sharing locations.
Absolutely.
If that might tempt people to go running over to that location to get that very shot, or not photographing birds' nests.
Yeah.
Because you might be scaring off the parents so they don't come back to feed the baby birds, or just thinking about what am I photograph? What do I want to photograph? And how am I going to impact it? Yeah. But we got away from your question and about learning about the world. But yeah, it is teaching me to observe the world more closely and maybe even think of ways of photographing things that I haven't done yet, like the entire world of people.
Yeah, I don't like taking photos of people usually.
It takes me way out. Yeah, it takes me way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I've photographed corporate events, which I find relatively easy because you can interact as much as you want with the people, but usually at a corporate event, you're trying to tuck yourself away in a corner that nobody's going to notice you. Use a long lens, zoom in on a face or a gesture or whatever, and and your uncle from there. But yeah, it's not my favourite sort of photography.
No, because I think you have to get it into it at the same level as we are in landscape photography, by going deeper and deeper and turning it into art and not just a photograph of a bunch of people standing around.
Exactly. You need a few shots of people standing around just so that you got the general vibe of the place, but you have to focus in on somebody with an interesting gesture or an interesting expression on their face or an interested expression.
Yeah. And then I look back at the masters of street photography, for somebody like Cartier-Bresson, and I think, but what he was making was art.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe sometime.
Maybe. I'll be interested to see how that goes. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's given you?
Oh, I know what the worst one was. Rule of thirds.
Okay.
Because once you get stuck in that sort of compositional rule, it's really hard to let go of it again and just get the composition that works.
Yeah.
So and I think that happens to a lot of beginners.
Yeah.
They get bogged down that game and leading lines and that sort of thing. And then they're not satisfied with the photo unless they've got it exactly the way they were taught to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the best piece of advice someone has given me, and I would say, I definitely learned from mentoring with Teo to photograph the things that make me happy.
Yeah.
And I think that the Scottish photographer Alistair Benn put that into words very succinctly when he started talking about expressive photography.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's about photographing the things that awaken feelings in you, and instead of making a good photograph. Yeah. I would say that's the best advice.
Right.
Yeah.
Where do you see photography's place in society?
It has changed a great deal. I've studied the history of photography, and I think there have been several big changes. One was when suddenly cameras were available for everybody.
Yeah.
And it became it became not so much, it wasn't a profession, it wasn't an art form, it was a way of just documenting your life.
Yep.
So that was the first development. And it became very democratic, which was a really good thing. But it had its shadow side. And that sort of continued when we got into the whole field of not only not necessarily digital media, but of course, social media.
Oh.
And everybody's splashing everything they photograph all over the internet. And that sort of brought photography into an entirely different light than when people were either out there in the beginning, either earning a living as a portrait photographer or as a war correspondent or something like that, or trying to make art with it. And of course, the very interesting development now is harnessing the power of artificial intelligence and where that's taking photography.
Very much so. You can't pick up a camera now without some kind of AI feature in it, and all of the processing applications have some form of AI built into it or in the background of them.
I'm only happy with that. But when you start generating things that weren't in the image in the first place,
yes,
you've got speaking of rabbit holes, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
And some people say it will be the end of photography. I actually don't believe that.
No, I don't agree with that at all. No.
It can make images that other people make and make perfect duplicates and perfect images of locations. But when your photography is art, when you're trying to express something intangible, you don't have to be afraid of AI pushing you out of business.
No.
So it all depends on the kind of photography you're doing.
Yeah. I've said this on the podcast several times that if you're a product photographer, if you're a fashion photographer even, and I'm not talking the high end guys, I'm talking about the that middle ground and low end. If you're in those professions, then yeah, your job's at stake. And to be honest, that in itself is a shame. But for people that, as you said, do it as an art form, landscape photographers that are passionate about being out in the field and in the world, they're never going to sit there. Some might, but they're never going to sit there and try and replace their photography with a few keystrokes.
Yeah, and they will, if they're making standard images, then yes, they will be pushed out too. But let them get creative.
Absolutely. And then commercially, there's always the fields of event photography, wedding photography, real estate photography, because you can't do an AI generation of someone's hotel room or Airbnb or rental property that they want to advertise, because that would be false advertising. Now, there might be some people that are wanting to do that, but I'd call them scammers rather than people that are actually really doing the job of marketing a product.
There's a development across the street and it's only started. You can't tell what it's going to look like except for these computer generated artist impressions.
Sure.
They've had to advertise the property, and they've even got people in there, children playing on the grass and stuff like that to show how wonderful it's going to look when it's finished.
That used to be an artist impression where somebody with a set of crayons or paintbrush or whatever or inks would actually draw, this is what that development's going to look like. So I get that, but when you're actually, if you've got a pre-existing structure, that's where it's kind of, you can't really advertise what you don't have. So somebody's going to have to get in there with the camera and
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you see as the future of photography? We talked a little bit about some of the changes that have gone on in the past. Where do you see photography going in the future?
I would like to see it merge more and more with the other visual arts. So it's no longer just about recording what's there.
Sure.
But it's more about, but it develops in the same direction that painting or etching or even sculpture is going, more and more as a means of expressing self-expression in some way, or expressing something you want to. That would be, for me, that would be one good direction for it to develop into. I still would like to see it as an instrument for informing people about things that are happening, the way journalist photography is used.
Definitely.
Except I know that there's always been a lot of fakery going on in there, and the idea that was always the realistic photography is not true.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there are enough people who do realistic photography, but it's not. Yeah. So those are two things. Technically, I have no idea. When we got past digital cameras that could do everything, I don't know.
Fair enough. I think we're going to have to wrap up shortly. I'm just going to ask you for a couple of names for me to speak to on future editions of the podcast.
Yeah. Not having a full list of who you've had, I'm just going to drop a couple of names and I've already dropped a couple of names in the talk. I think that as far as Europe is concerned, Theo Bosboom, who I've mentioned a couple of times, Sandra Bartokra, who's a German photographer, and it's really interesting work. Alistair Ben, who is very much a landscape photographer with his own unique approach.
I've had Alistair on the show, yeah.
You've had Alistair? Yeah. Okay. But I think that's as far as I got. I was thinking about it ahead of time, and that was pretty much as far as I've got. I know you've got Alice, who's a very dear friend of mine. And she's extremely creative, and you have her shortly.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that a good start?
That's perfect. Thank you, Madeline. I've got one more question for you, and it's a bit of a silly one, but it's one that a lot of photographers are interested in. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
I do not like pineapple on pizza. I would not put any kind of fruit on my pizza. And
what about tomatoes? Tomatoes are a fruit.
Yeah, you're right. Tomatoes are a fruit. I apologize. But sweet fruits.
I know what you mean.
And I actually only like pineapple if it's very fresh, plucked in the part of the world that it grows.
Yeah.
And the stuff they put in tins and stuff like that just does not tick any of my boxes yet.
No. All right.
Do you like pineapple or pizza?
I won't pick it off, but I don't order it normally. It's funny, I did order a pizza and I didn't actually clock that it had pineapple on it a few weeks ago. And it did. Yeah, I ate it. I'm happy to eat it. If it's there, it's not a problem for me. But yeah, I don't normally order it. It's not something that I go out of my way to seek.
Yeah. I'm very much Italian. Pizzas are Italian
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
No, that's a good way to be. All right. Thank you so much, Madeleine. It's been wonderful speaking with you and getting to know you a little bit better. Where can people find your work?
On my website, which is just www.lenagh, that's my last name, .nl.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been delightful. I've enjoyed it a lot.
I'm pleased to hear that. If you've tried to experiment with your photography, leave a comment below. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show. And keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com, along with prints, photography gear, and I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment. Please give me some feedback. I'm really keen to know if you're listening, and if you're listening, whether you're enjoying things, not enjoying things. What do you like or what don't you like about the show? I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.